So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Today we'll get back here, BSN Network. This is the BSN Network podcast here today. It is Monday, December 21st. Hope everyone's having a good day so far and a good rest of their day yesterday. It is, in fact, Monday, December 21st. We are now 4 days away until Christmas, so that is always a good thing. We got a lot of sports to get to today, recapping a full weekend of sports, college basketball, college football, NFL. Jets actually win a game. We'll get into that just coming up in just a little bit. We got Giants, the rest of the NFL, the NBA, all that good stuff coming up. So a lot of news to talk about today, a lot of news to talk about going forward, and it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. Like I said, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be an exciting couple of weeks ahead of us. We got a lot of NBA stuff. The Nets start tomorrow. The rest of the NBA starts Wednesday. Nets, Warriors, and Lakers, Clippers start tomorrow. So there's your 2 games on tomorrow. And then Wednesday you have the rest of the NBA. So it's going to be exciting. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for the season to get rolling, and I'm excited to get the season to get rolling. I'm excited to watch the Nets. Obviously, all the build up, all the hype up. Since KD signed with the Nets, all the build up and hype up, has been crazy. And now finally to have Kyrie and KD on the court together at the same time, to me as a Nets fan, I'm sure many other Nets fans, is really exciting. Exciting times to be a Net fan, as always. And as for the Jets, not so exciting times, to be honest with you. I'll recap the win. I've got mixed emotions with it. It's obviously it's really whatever type of fan are you. Are you a fan that, loves to see, the team win and stuff? Or are you a fan that is kind of worried about the future? What are you as a New York Jets fan? I'm kind of in the middle. I don't want us to go 0-16, or at least I didn't want us to go 0-16. But at the same time, I want Trevor Lawrence on the Jets. So you got to choose between one of them. Because I didn't want to go 0-16 and be named as one of the worst teams ever. I mean, I think would go down as one of the worst teams ever, even if we go 1-15. But still, obviously 1-15 looks better than 0-16. You don't get on that list of teams that went 0-16. This season just be forgot about. But yeah, we'll get into it. So these are the topics for today. We got the NFL games, Jets and Giants. We'll get into it all. First time all season long, I'll be talking about a Jets win, which is pretty crazy. It really is. I was not expecting that. As you all know, my game pick, I was expecting an absolute blowout by the Rams. That was not the case. Rams did not come to play, to say the very least. They just did not come to play. I think, they got a big division game coming up against the Seahawks, so, they could have been looking ahead, taking the Jets lightly, and things happen that way. Then we got the fantasy football results, shocking results in both leagues. I actually lose in both leagues. We'll get into it, though. And then we got college basketball, college football, Kentucky, Nets, and the NBA, all that good stuff. And in Miami a little bit as well. They made the Cheez-It Bowl. Not what we wanted, not what I wanted as a fan, but at the end of the day, it's a bowl game. Bowl game's a bowl game, and hopefully we can win that. That's coming up this Saturday. So with all that being said, we got a lot of sports to get to ahead of us. We got the weekend recap of all the sports news. So with all that being said, this is the BSN podcast, and let's get right into it. So first off, I would just like to say this was another excellent week of football, another excellent week of NFL football. There was a lot of good games on. The 1 o'clock games was pretty good. I know the Niners-Cowboys game got pretty entertaining. It was entertaining from the start and entertaining to the finish. 2 not-so-good teams put up pretty good offensive performances. Cowboys scoring 41, Niners scoring 33. So overall, a pretty offensive performance. Yes, I mean, I think we could all assume that. I was watching that game at 1 o'clock, then watched the Jets at 4. I think we can all assume that, bad defense on the Cowboys, not so great defense with all the injuries on the Niners. We can expect that. But for 2 bad offenses was not the great game. Washington with Dwayne Haskins, I did not think Dwayne Haskins played all that bad. He definitely did not play that great. but he didn't play awful. He started off the game really bad. He progressively got better. It was not what you want. It was not 7th pick over. It wasn't 7th overall or 15th overall pick good. But it was obviously, I guess, it wasn't good enough to get the job done. But it wasn't horrendous, is where I'm trying to get to. Bears-Vikings game. Vikings are pretty much done, and the Bears right now are cruising. They're riding high, 7-7. 2 games left to try to squeak into the playoffs. They need some help with some other teams, though. Titans took care of business. Dolphins eliminated the Patriots for the first time. For the first time ever, the Patriots, for the first time in like 20, I don't know how many years it's been, but for the first time in a very long time, the Patriots will not be in the playoffs, which is exciting news as a Jets fan. I'm sure exciting news for a lot of you. No one really likes the Patriots, unless if you're obviously a Patriots fan. Ravens took care of business. Colts took care of business. They took care of business, but it was not easy. I said it was going to be a close game. It was a close game. A fumble late hurt the Texans. And in the Bills, Broncos, Packers, Panthers games, we expected the outcomes. Those were on the Saturday. I'll talk about those games as well. But yeah, overall for the game picks, though, this week got another very solid week. Even though the Jets won, you would think with the Jets won, that's a lost pick. But overall, I had a very solid week. I went 2-0 on the Saturday game picks, which really helped me. Starting off 0-1, then to go technically into the weekend, into the prime Sunday games with that winning record was technically like going 1-0 on Thursday night. So I was able to really erase that Thursday night wrong pick with the 2 wins on Saturday. I officially went 11-4 on this week. Depending on what happens in tonight's Steelers-Bengals game will depend on if I either go 11-5 or 12-4. Obviously, hope that it's 12-4, but yeah, you never know. It's football. We saw the Jets beat the Rams, so at this point, you never know. But I went 11-4 this week so far. Hopefully that turns into a 12-4. And again, another double-digit win week. Just keep on racking those up. This is my my fourth consecutive double-digit win week. If I get the pick wrong tonight, this will be my second consecutive 11 pick win week. And overall, if I win this, 2 of my last 4 have been 12 wins on the pick. So far, very successful on the picks, and that bumps my overall record to 157-77 on the year. So with 2 weeks to go, you assume 10 wins. That's 20, 177 around there, 170-ish. Your goal is to probably try and get to game picks at this point. 175, 180-ish. If I get another 2 week double digit, that's 20 plus 57, 77. So around there would be, I think, the probably goal at this point in the season. So a successful year, I would say, for the game picks. But yeah, and then we got obviously next week, then week 17 to close out the game picks. So so another solid week. Moved my record to 157-77 on the season. So another successful week for the game picks. So now we move on to what actually broke a record. There was a couple records. This game made history of one of the biggest upsets in NFL history. So the Rams came into this game 17-point favorites. I mean, no one really thought the Jets had any shot whatsoever. Just no one thought they had any shot whatsoever. No one thought they had any shot. I didn't think they had a shot. And you know me, how I am with the Jets. I don't think we have a shot in any game. And even though they won this game, I still have us losing our next 2. Sorry to spoil it, shocker. I'm not going to pick the Jets the rest of the way. But yeah, obviously with the Jets obviously winning this game, it has multiple impacts. And here we go. So first off, I'll get into the game, and then I'll get into what this game means for the rest of this year, into the future, kind of what this game means. So the Jets yesterday did in fact get the win 23-20. I thought Darnold looked good. He played good. He had 207 yards, a touchdown. He played pretty well. I mean, he did his job, went out there, played against a very good Rams defense. He did his job. I was not expecting this outcome at all. I was not expecting Darnold to only go down 2 times. He had 2 sacks yesterday. I was not expecting that. As a matter of fact, I was actually expecting, if you had to take an over-under, I think I said on the podcast, I had an over-under of like Aaron Donald getting 2 or 3 sacks. I just didn't. I thought this was going to be an absolute just blowout. Rams were going to come out of the gate firing on all cylinders. Secondary wasn't going to be able to handle Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, who have the most receptions combined between any duo in the NFL. Yesterday, they both were quiet. Robert Woods caught the late touchdown. But other than that, Cooper Kupp had a very quiet game. I will tell you this. What happened in yesterday's game was what I had to call overlooking your opponent. And the Jets did this last season, and the Rams did it yesterday. And it's going to happen in the NFL. It's going to happen in the NFL. Not every game is going to be perfect. Everybody always says any given Sunday a team could win. But when the Jets are this bad, you just would not think that's possible. The Rams were overlooking the Jets yesterday, which, to be honest, that's not bad because to overlook the Jets really is not that bad because every team I'm sure done it. I'm sure there's been a lot of teams, I bet you the Raiders. I would bet you the Raiders probably weren't, with all the media about them trying to make the playoffs, they probably weren't fully focused in about, beating the Jets. The Jets did this last season. When the Jets were making that late playoff hunt, and they had a couple easy games coming up. They had the Dolphins, they had the Bengals. They had a couple easy games. They had a couple really easy games. They had Raiders, a team who they've been beat in the past. They had them again, right? So there was obviously, and then the Jets ended up going on the road, losing to the Cincinnati Bengals, who at the time was the team that would go 0-16 to secure that number 1 overall pick. Okay, so the New York Jets yesterday, that kind of happened to them. They beat a team who no one expected them to beat, and they lose the first overall pick. Now, I will tell you when I knew the Jets were going to win this game. I knew the Jets were going to win this game when they score. The opening drive touchdown, I was like, okay, they're going to win. They're going to win this game. Not that I said that. When they scored that opening drive touchdown, I was like, okay, this is normal. They have 8 consecutive streaks this season where they score an opening drive touchdown. So at this point, with the opening drive touchdown, I was like, okay, they score an opening drive touchdown. There's not that much. But when it was to the point where I knew we were going to win the game was when that second drive, Jared Goff and the Rams, he got picked off, I think, by Bryce Hall, or maybe that was another drive. But either way, they got 3 and out, or it was a pick off or something. I knew it. Right when that play happened, I knew the Jets were going to win that game. The reason I knew is because I know how the NFL works. Teams who get off the slow starts, a team who comes in, the Jets had way more energy. Oh, they had the blocked punt. That's what they had. Way more energy. The blocked punt, the recovery, goes down, scores. The Jets had way more energy than the Rams yesterday. The Rams took the Jets lightly yesterday. That was the story of the game. The Rams got caught looking ahead. They have a big divisional matchup next week against the Seahawks. They got caught looking ahead. The Jets take them and beat them. That's what the Jets did yesterday. And I'll tell you what, I thought some positives to take away from this win because it is a win. If you want to take positives, I know a lot of people are negative about this, that they ended up losing and stuff. But if you want to think of a positive, is Darnold looked good. He had 31. He had won 22 of 31, 207 yards, 9.4 was average. 1 touchdown. He took 2 sacks and a rating of 99.8. Not bad, to say the very least. It was good. It wasn't a star-studded performance, but when you throw for 200-plus yards and a touchdown against one of the best defenses in the league, I think the best, that's a pretty good performance. Frank Gore had 23 carries for 59 yards, 2.6 was average, a touchdown. Ty Johnson had 3 carries himself. Other than that, not much going there. Crowder had 6 catches for 66 yards. Herndon had 3 catches for 48 yards. Ty Johnson had 6 catches for 39 yards and a touchdown. And that was kind of it. There was only 2 touchdowns scored for the New York Jets on offense yesterday. Other than that, it was a whole lot of field goals. They had a whole lot of field goals. Ficken came in, did his job. Obviously, as a Jets fan, that's one thing you want to look at. We've had some kicker problems ever since we got rid of Jason Myers, a Pro Bowl kicker 2 years 2 years ago. Ever since we got rid of him, our kicking situation has been awful. We've been through Ficken, Catanzaro, some other guys. Ficken's back from off. Castillo, Ficken's now off of IR. Came in, did his job. Corey Ballantyne had a kick return, and other than that, not much going for the Jets there, but they did get the win. Offense was pretty good. The offense was normal in the second half. It was not great. They scored a total of 10 points in the second half. The Rams outscored them in the second half, but other than that, the Jets did a pretty good job of, when I was sitting there watching that game, I was like, the Jets are going to blow this game at halftime. There's no worry about it. Jared Goff went 22 of 34, 209 yards, 9.5 was average, 2 touchdowns, a pick, 3 sacks, and a rating of 89. Everyone's saying this was on Jared Goff. I don't think this was so much on Jared Goff. As a matter of fact, I think Sean McVay is a great coach. I think he's going to stick in this league. He's a young coach. He's only like 34 years old. You think that might be a little older? That is very young for the coach. There's some players in the league that are older than him playing, and he's coaching. He's a very young coach. I think he might be the youngest head coach in the league. I think McVay is great. I think he's going to probably lead him to a Super Bowl within the next couple of years. I think he'll be there for a long time. I don't think you can really so much say that this loss is all. I mean, I don't think you really say this loss should be get rid of McVay. That's always what teams want to do. They always want to take it out on the coach, and I've been that way for a while now. If my team's struggling, you can always go ahead and blame it on the coach and the quarterback. Goff did not play his greatest game. We can agree. I mean, he threw an interception, took 3 sacks. His offensive line didn't block, and there was a lot of penalties too. I mean, they scored a touchdown, people. The Rams scored a touchdown to take the lead, but it got called back because of a block in the back, or a holding. So the Rams would have won this game if that holding was never called. So you can't always say, but what I really think this game was, I think it was on the coaching staff. I think McVay is a great coach and all that, but I think it was. You got to get your guys prepared. They obviously weren't well prepared. They were focused on next week. And we'll see how they respond from this. Sometimes team, when they battle a little adversity like this, they come back firing on all cylinders and crush that team. Sometimes team, when they're battling adversity and lose a game like this, they come out flat and they just are done. We'll see what this Rams team. That's going to be the decider on if it's a good coach or not. Cam Akers had 15 carries for 63 yards, 4.2 his average. Higbee had 5 targets, 4 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown. Robert Woods, 6 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. Cooper Kupp, 5 catches, 39 yards. No touchdowns there. Like I said, I mean, other than that, Woods had 56 yards, and Kupp only had 39 yards. For some of the most catches in the league by that duo, they were shut down yesterday. And props to the Jets secondary. I mean, the Jets played well yesterday. I mean, they did. I mean, you can't take that away from them. They played well. I mean, they beat the Los Angeles Rams. A lot of people think, and I think myself too, a team that could make the run in the playoffs. And the Jets stink. So the Jets got the win. They moved to 23-20. Now, let me take you through what this means for the Jets, right? We're sitting here right now. It's a win. Players are happy. Coaches are happy. Organization, I'm sure, is happy. I'm sure Douglas is happy. Christopher Johnson. I'm sure the Jets are happy. There's not going to be a player in that locker room that's not going to be happy. Players don't purposely tank, okay? If you think that the players are purposely tank, they don't, right? Players aren't going to purposely tank. They're still trying to play for their jobs. A lot of guys that want to get paid next year, like Marcus May, his contract's up. Jets will probably re-sign him. He's a guy that even if the Jets don't, he's a guy that's going to want to be a big name. He's going to want to be a guy that gets the money. If you purposely tank, you purposely play bad, that stuff. So these guys also are playing for their jobs. So you can't really sit here and say that they're purposely losing, because if that's the case, then they could hurt themselves down the road. So I don't think the Jets players are purposely losing. They're playing for their jobs. They're doing a little bit, especially some of these young guys are getting a chance, being at their 0-13, giving these young guys a chance. They're trying to make the most of their chance, and Bryce Hall did that yesterday, without a doubt. He got the interception. He's been given the chance. He's made some very great plays, so he's taking advantage of it. What this means for the New York Jets, okay? The New York Jets did win this game. What this means for them. This means for them that more than likely the chance of getting Trevor Lawrence is out of reach, I would so much say. I mean, the Jaguars have 2 games left on their schedule. They have the Colts, the Bears this upcoming week, and then the Colts. With the way the Bears are playing right now, I don't foresee them getting the win. And the way the Colts are playing right now, I don't foresee them getting a win either. Now, they did beat the Colts early on in the year, but I don't want to sit here and say that that's going to be the case, because that was week 1, people. That was 15 weeks ago. It's a whole lot more different. Week 1 is totally different than what we're in now, week 15. So, everyone's saying, they might beat him again. They beat him in week 1. I don't think so. The only way that they beat the Bears, I think, and I'll be rooting for the Jaguars. I will, because I want Trevor Lawrence. The only way the Jets lose to the Jaguars lose to the Bears is the Bears get caught looking ahead like a game today, like the Buccaneers did. If they get caught looking ahead to that final game against the Packers, a game that could very well decide if they're in the playoffs or not, and they get caught looking ahead, that is the one way I think they win. The other way is if they catch the Colts benching their players, benching their starters on the final week of the season. They figure, you know what? It's the Jaguars. We clinched a playoff spot. Rest our players. Rest some of our older guys like Phillip Rivers and them, and let them be fresh and ready for our wild card game the upcoming week. So that's the only way. I think there's a shot. It's slim, but there's definitely a chance. I think they have a better shot at beating the Colts if they rest their players, which is a very great possibility. They know it's against the Jaguars. This game means absolutely nothing. If it's one of those games that you can't move up in the standings or move down, they might be like, you know what, let's rest Phillip Rivers, let's rest some of these other guys, let them rest, bring in some other backups, and just play out this game. That could be an option too. Whatever the case may be, we need the Jaguars to win a game, because if they do, then the Jets hold on to that first overall pick. Now, if the Jets keep on winning, then more than likely it's over. But the Jaguars are gonna need to win a game. So the Jets won. But you think of this game as a week. You think this game is a Week 15 game. It's a win. A win's a win. I know the players are happy, coaches are happy. You got 2 games left on the season. Obviously no player or coach wants to go 0-16. But at the same time, you could be thinking big picture. What are you thinking? Are you thinking big picture? Are you thinking the fact that this game, might cost us the shot of probably one of the greatest prospects ever to come out of college? Or are you thinking that, what? We won this game. We avoided 0-16. We're still going to get the second pick. You could do a lot with the second pick. You can maybe take Penei Sewell or Kyle Trask or someone like that. What are you going to do now? That's really what it's going to come down to. And I don't want to make all this speculation now because we're still in the season. I don't want to start talking about the draft now because we still have 2 weeks left in the season. Who knows? The Jets could still end up with the first pick. But at the moment, the Jaguars have the first pick because the tiebreaker goes to the Jaguars. If both teams are 1-15 at the end of the year, tiebreaker goes to the Jaguars. So we'll see what happens. Jets got the win, though. I mean, they played well. Can't take that away from them. They got the win. Now we move on to the rest of the games. We move on to the rest of the games on Sunday. We'll start off with the Browns and the Giants. I was going to start off with that anyway, obviously, with that. But, the Giants got stomped on. Something about this Giants team, I just don't think it's all that good. And I've said this for a while now. I think they were incredibly overrated when they beat the Seahawks. I think they were incredibly overrated. I think they are still overrated. I think there's a lot of people out there, a lot of announcers, a lot of sports shows, or whatever the case may be. I know there's a lot of people out there who think that the Giants are this next level team. Okay, I don't think that's the case. All right, I know there's still some people out there who think that they are going to make the playoffs, think that they're going to make a run. I don't think so. I think they're finishing 6-10 at best, which mathematically could still technically get them the playoffs if Washington loses their next 2 games, which I don't foresee happening, especially the way Washington's playing. Washington can clinch the division next week now that the Giants lost. If the Giants lose next week and Washington wins, Washington can clinch, I'm pretty sure. You still might have the Cowboys and stuff, but they beat the Cowboys twice, so the tiebreaker would go to them. Eagles, didn't they beat the Eagles early on in the year? Yes, they beat the Eagles. Washington did. And then did they beat the Eagles again? They play the Eagles final week of the season. So more than likely, if Washington wins next week and the Giants, the Eagles lose, Cowboys they don't got to worry about. Cowboys, even if the Cowboys finish 6-, or even if the Cowboys finish what? Cowboys right now are 5-9. Even if they finish 7-10 or 7-9, and so do the Reds, Washington would get that because they beat them twice, so they have the tiebreaker. But this is a big loss for the Giants. The Giants. Here's my whole thing. I think the Giants got a whole lot of national attention for a very young team, and I feel like they're just feeling too much pressure. They were on national television last night. They just felt a whole lot of pressure. I feel like ever since that Seahawks game could have been the worst thing that happened to them. And I know that might sound crazy, but it's the truth. Look what's happened ever since that Seahawks win. You got all these players saying, start putting some respect on us and all that. Look what's happened since that Seahawks win. If they lose that game, people are like, okay, they lost. They were expected to lose. Look what happened since that Seahawks win. They've came out flat. They've scored since that Seahawks win. They have scored a total of 13 points since that Seahawks win. And in that game against the Seahawks, they scored 12 points. They almost scored more points in one game. No, they actually scored 17 against the Seahawks. Since that, they've scored 13 against a decent Cardinals defense and a very solid Browns defense. But the Cardinals defense is not that good. You could have put up way more than 7 points against the Cardinals. They did not score a touchdown yesterday, people. The Giants did not get into the end zone. And I actually blame this game on the coaching. Some bad decisions coaching. What are you doing? Why are you bringing out your punter to throw the ball when you're inside of your own 5 on a 4th down? Take the points. Or if you're going to go for it, actually have your real quarterback throw it, not Riley Dixon, the punter. I blame this game on the coach if I was the New York Giants. And if I was a Giant fan, I would blame it on the coaches too. This was some bad decision. They went for it too many times. They avoided the points too many times. This game would have been a whole lot different if the coaches made some better decisions. And that was on Joe Judge. Not just Joe Judge. I think it was on the entire coaching staff. Because even the defense had their moments too. The defense had some difficulties stopping the run at times. I mean, the later in the game, their backup running back or third string running back came in and they let him run for 20 yards on the one play where they needed to stop him. Like, that's just unacceptable. You can't have that happen. I think this was collaborative, a bad effort. You can't blame one individual. I think it was mainly on the coaching staff, though, and I think the players. I think overall it was just a bad game. If I had to blame it on any one person, it would be the coaching staff. I don't want to blame it on one coach because the offense was flat under Kitchens, and some of the plays that Joe Judge called involving the special team stuff and bringing Riley Dixon and some of the fourth down stuff, that was on Joe Judge. And I even think, too, the defense a little bit. They did their job, but ultimately, a couple late runs in the game really hurt them. Like, you can't let their third-string running back run for 20 yards. First play of the game, let him run for 20 yards, and that's the game. You just can't have that. Giants lose. I'm telling you, man, Giants are just going downhill from here. Giants are just going down. I've said this. I said this from the start. I never believed in this Giants team, and I really still don't. I don't want to sound negative about it. This Giants team is just not that team to go to the playoffs. People got to realize this. This is not the Giants team. They're in a rebuild. They still need to build. And that's what can go with any NFC East team. Okay, that could go with any NFC East team. I think it would be best for the Giants to lose these next two games, get a top 7 pick in the NFL draft an offensive lineman or draft a receiver, put weapons around Daniel Jones and see what happens. I think that's what's best for the New York Giants. But the Browns win 20-6. Next up, we got the Chiefs and the Saints. Chiefs came into this game and played well. I mean, they didn't have their best game, to say the very least. Mahomes did not have his best game, but Chiefs got the job done. And Mahomes played well. He did take 4 sacks. He had the fumble lost. He had 2 fumbles, but he still threw for 3 touchdowns and 254 yards. And that's what I'm saying about Mahomes. Everyone could say, he had a bad performance yesterday. I know he was not as on his game. But the fact that a bad performance for Patrick Mahomes is 254 yards and 3 touchdowns, if that's a bad performance, then, he's the MVP. Everyone's saying, Mahomes has been struggling these past couple of games. Pull up his struggling stats for me, and let's look at him, okay? This is his supposedly not-so-good game. Patrick Mahomes, 254 yards, 3 touchdowns. That is still a remarkable game. That is still a very good game by Patrick Mahomes. And everyone's saying, it wasn't his best game. It wasn't, but the fact that he still threw for 254 yards and 3 touchdowns, I mean, telling you, this guy is the best quarterback in the NBA. Or not the NBA, sorry. Best quarterback in the NFL. Sorry about that. Best quarterback without a doubt in the NFL. Best quarterback. And this guy has got a bright future ahead of him. Because if that's a bad game by Patrick Mahomes, it's scary for other teams. And as for the Saints, some mental mistakes early. Cam Jordan punching the other player, getting ejected. Some injuries hurt them that game. Some mental stuff hurt them. Punching a guy, you've got to know that. Cam Jordan, too. He's a veteran. He's been in the league. You got to know that. You don't punch the guy. You got to know that. That's bad. Mistakes hurt this Saints team. Chiefs win. And they're, 13-1 right now? Chiefs are rolling right now. They're rolling. Next up, we got the Cardinals and the Eagles. I'll tell you what, I haven't said that I haven't bought into this Jalen Hurts stuff, but I'll tell you what, this kid, Jalen Hurts really seems like I don't want to say he's the real deal yet, but he seems like he might be able to stick in this league. He had an insane game yesterday. And I know it wasn't against an insane Cardinals defense, but it wasn't like he was playing against the Bengals or the Cowboys. He was playing against the Cardinals. Their defense isn't that bad. Their defense is pretty good. It's nothing amazing, like I said with the Giants. It's nothing amazing. It's not top-tier Rams Steelers defense, but it's probably about in the middle average to above average. Last week, obviously, he had the big game against the Saints defense, too. I'll tell you what. Jalen Hurts has done well against 2 prime defenses, against the Cardinals and the Saints. He's done well against 2 pretty good defenses. So, Jalen Hurts yesterday had a big day. If I'm not mistaken, he went for 338 yards and 3 touchdowns. He also rushed one in, so 4 total touchdowns, all while taking 6 sacks as well. And I'll tell you what, everyone's talking about Jalen Hurts and stuff. This just goes to show you that it wasn't like Carson Wentz. This just goes to show you with Carson Wentz that it was Carson Wentz. It was on Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was working with that same group of receivers, and everyone made that excuse. Oh, look at his receiving core. Well, that excuse for Jalen Hurts, you don't make that now. Because, look, Jalen Hurts is doing it with this same group of receivers Wentz was doing. It's just Jalen Hurts fits the scheme better. He can run better. And overall, I think at the moment, who I would take Jalen Hurts over Wentz right now. Eagles do lose. Cardinals won. They won it late. Kyler Murray, couple really nice throws late in that game. Cardinals win. And a couple nice defensive plays late in that game. Eagles played well. The Eagles might not make the playoffs. They might miss it. But this team, just know the future's bright if Jalen Hurts continues to play like this. I'm not expecting him to throw 340 yards and four total touchdowns every game. But, I mean, if he's playing anywhere near this, your future's bright for this Eagles team, at least. And now, as an Eagles fan right now, you're probably scratching your head why you didn't do this 6 weeks ago. That I can't answer for you, but I'm sure a lot of Eagles fans are frustrated that you didn't do this 6-7 weeks ago when the games actually really mattered, because at this point, your playoff chances are so slim. But hey, the Eagles they're still alive, just very slim. I think Washington's pretty much got that division wrapped up. But the Cardinals win, another close one. Cardinals figuring out ways to win, not in the most prettiest fashion, but they're getting the job done. Next up, we got the Cowboys and the 49ers. I was not expecting this outcome. I mean, I thought, the 49ers, this was not a great team either. This was really one of these matchups. I mean, the Cowboys keep their season alive, obviously. What hurts the Cowboys is they need Washington to lose outright. If Washington loses their next 2 games, finish 6-10, Cowboys need to win. Cowboys need to win the remaining games, I think. Because if Cowboys finish 6-10 and so does Washington, Washington wins because they won twice. So Cowboys need to win the remaining games, and Washington needs to lose in order for the Cowboys to get in. But hey, even if the Cowboys don't get in, at least you're ending the season on a little bit of a high note. They got a winnable game next week and a winnable game against the Giants. So they could very well end the year 4-game win streak. But I liked the way this team played yesterday. I obviously watched the game. I usually don't watch the Cowboys that much. Usually, when the Jets have a 4 o'clock game, I'm usually or the later game, I'm usually watching the Giants. But the Giants obviously had the Sunday night game, so I found I was watching this game. It was a pretty good game. I mean, I don't usually tend to watch the Cowboys that much. I just don't. Usually, I'm watching the Jets and stuff. Or if it's on prime time, but this was a Cowboys team that looked good to me. I mean, they looked pretty solid to me yesterday. I mean, I know, this is a team, these are wins that you need to have. That's the one thing. Like, I know I predicted the Niners to win, but, the Cowboys at least this year have won games they were supposed to win, and I think we can all agree on that. They were supposed to win the Bengals game. They won it. I mean, yesterday, they were underdogs against the Niners, but it wasn't like there was a crazy upset. They were only like 1-point underdogs, so technically you could say they were supposed to win that. The Falcons game, they were supposed to win, they won that. And the Giants game, they were supposed to win, they won that. And the Vikings game, they weren't supposed to win, but they got the job done there. Overall, that is one thing. The Cowboys, at least one positive, is they take care of business, right? There's been sometimes this year they didn't take care of business. The first week of the season, I think they were actually favorites. They didn't win there. But, it's a Cowboys team that, at least, some of these games, they get the job done. So it'll be interesting to see what happens the rest of the year, though. But the Niners, their season, is pretty much over. They're 5-9. Niners come back next year. It's going to be interesting to see what happens next year. COVID, injuries, stadium change, tough year for the Niners. We'll see what they can do next season. Next up, we got the Buccaneers and the Falcons. Falcons yet blow another lead, 17-point lead. They blow it. The Falcons absolutely blow it. 17-point lead. The Falcons blow yet another lead to Tom Brady. And it was funny. There's this picture I found. It was Brady down 24-7 yesterday, and then when Brady was down 20-3 in the Super Bowl, and it was like the same exact picture. It was literally the same exact thing. It was Brady on the sideline with sitting down on the sideline with his head down and his hands his hands cuffed together. And it was like, this is like the exactly same thing that happened. He was down 17 against the Falcons in the Super Bowl. Obviously, we all know the 28-3 comeback. Came back and won. Down 17 yesterday, 24-7 comeback. Guess what? Comes back and wins. So, I'll tell you what, for Falcons fans and Falcons players, this is probably very painful because, knowing that you had these games in your hands, this could very well be this is a team that's 4-10, but this could very well be a team that flip it around. They could be 10-4. And like I said, I don't think this Falcons team's all that bad. It's just they can't hang on to games late. And you would think with the veteran presence and things like that they would, but I mean, it was a definitely a tough game for the Falcons, and a tough pill to swallow if they're them. But as for the Buccaneers, they got care of business. Wasn't the prettiest, but they took care of business. Buccaneers continue to win there. When I saw they were down by that much, I literally was sitting there saying, Falcons, watch out. It's the Falcons. It's the Falcons, right? Falcons or Chargers, you always got to be concerned. And sure enough, look, Buccaneers come back and win. Next up, we got the Seahawks and Washington. I said this earlier on in the podcast. Seahawks took care of business. They did what they needed to do. I thought this was going to be a close game. I predicted 28-24. It was 20-15, so I was just 1 point off. But it was a close game. Washington started off slow, and that ultimately what hurt them. They started off very slow, started off sluggish. Haskins looked bad. They just did not look like they came out of the gate. I mean, they just did not look like they were on the field early. And this was one of these things where it was too little too late. They tried to make that late game comeback. Was too little too late. They made the comeback. And for everyone that was making fun of Haskins yesterday, and I was a little bit too, it was pretty embarrassing when he went 5 for 8 for 5 yards. Ultimately, if you look at the numbers, I know he threw 2 picks and only a touchdown, but it wasn't awful. It wasn't an awful performance. He didn't play that bad. He played not good, but he didn't play awful. It was meh. So, he did the job that he needed. I mean, he could have done it better, but I mean, for a Washington, if you're a Washington fan or even an NFL fan, what do you really expect out of Dwayne Haskins? Obviously, with Alex Smith being out with the injury, what do you really expect out of Dwayne Haskins? That's going to help your team win. That's really the big question, I think they got to get rid of Haskins. Haskins obviously has really struggled, so we'll see what happens with this Washington team going forward. They've got a very winnable game coming up against Carolina, and they got a very winnable game coming up against the Eagles as well. So they could very well clinch the division coming up within these next 2 weeks. So Washington's just got to do their job, right? They can't. Younger team, they cannot get caught looking ahead. They just got to do their job and get these wins. Seahawks win though and took care of business. Next up, we got the Bears and the Vikings. Bears got the win. It's been a whole lot of up and downs for the Vikings and Bears. Mitch Trubisky looks like a Hall of Fame quarterback all of a sudden. I don't mean that really, but Mitch Trubisky all of a sudden looks like their future. David Montgomery looks insane. Allen Robinson looks insane. Like, all of a sudden, these Bears team. This Bears team is some of the most unpredictable team ever. And same thing with the Vikings. This Vikings roster is almost the same roster as they had last year. Outside of Diggs leaving, pretty much the same roster. If anything, you're adding. You got Justin Jefferson. You still have Thielen. Obviously, Dalvin Cook, Kirk Cousins. Like, this is almost the same exact team. But yet, you still can't find a way to win. I don't want to make all this speculation that Kirk Cousins is going to be gone. They gave him a lot of money. But I wouldn't be surprised if Kirk Cousins is out of there by this offseason. Because they gave him a lot of money. They signed him a big contract. The guy can't win primetime games. He can't win big games like this. A big game to Kirk Cousins, it's almost like he has FOMO. Fear of being in. Phobia. Fear of being in. Right? Obviously, FOMO is a fear of missing out. Phobia is like a fear of being in. So, it's almost like he's like that. He can't win primetime games, and he can't win big games. And this game yesterday was a big game. And guess what? He could not get the job done. He played well, but still. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. This offseason is going to be real interesting with the Vikings. The Vikings have a road to take. They have a fork in the road. They got to decide what. Do they go on to, let's try to go one more year, try to push to the playoffs, or do they go on full strip-down rebuild? They got a road to take. They got one of them. They got to take one of them. Personally, I would take the rebuild side because Kirk Cousins is not your future. He's shown that he's not that good. I would take the rebuild side, and I would go ahead and... Or you could always try one more year and see what happens, but not really going to do much for you. I would take the rebuild side. Build your team. Get a quarterback. Build your team. Finish 7-9 or whatever. Build your team around that quarterback. Keep Cook. Build it around the offense. Improve on the defense. Get a lot of picks. I think that's what they do. They build for the future. Because this Vikings team, they've been in and out of the playoffs the past couple of seasons. They just haven't been able to get to that next level. They win, they make us all like, oh my gosh, the Vikings win, and then they come out flat. So it's gonna be interesting. But the Bears continue to keep their playoff hopes alive. They got a game next week against the Jaguars where they cannot get caught looking ahead. And if I was the Bears coach, Matt Nagy, I would say to the team, look what happened to the Rams today. right? We cannot be that team. That could decide our season right there. You have to focus on the game. But yeah, so the Bears win. Next up, we got the Titans and the Lions. Titans, I mean, there's not much really has to be said about this game. Lions, another team that I think they've been in a rebuild, but I think they got to get rid of Stafford. Not saying he's been bad, but he's been Get rid of him, draft a quarterback, start over for the Lions, get a new coach, really just start over. Lions are in a similar situation with the Jets. You know, with the Jets hiring a coach, not being the coach they wanted or expected, has been horrible. Same thing with the Lions. Lions hiring a coach hoping he was what they expected. He was awful, right? Lions and the Jets are in the same situation. It's almost like they were trying to get out of the rebuild, and now they're right back into it. It was like they cracked the door open from the rebuild, and now it's just shut, and they're all back in the basement. Like it's, you know what I'm talking about? It's tough. This is another Lions team that just struggles. But the Titans win. Titans are rolling right now. Titans offense is scary when they're on. Tannehill, Davis, Brown, Henry, especially Derrick Henry hit another one of those big stiff arms. This team's a scary football team. So now we move on to the Dolphins and the Patriots. Dolphins played well. Their defense has been very good this season. This Dolphins defense has been very good many times this year. It's been very, very good this year for the Dolphins. Cam Newton yesterday, just something about him. He just cannot throw a touchdown. He's really struggled with the touchdowns. And as for Tua obviously didn't have his best game, but still threw for 145 yards. Overall, the Dolphins got the job done, and they eliminate the Patriots, which is very great. Very amazing to eliminate the Patriots. Patriots will not be in the playoffs for the first time in a very long time. The Patriots won't be in the playoffs. It's great news as a Jets fan. I'm sure great news for a lot of you people who don't like Belichick, who don't like the Patriots. I'm one of those. Obviously, the Patriots and the Jets just don't mix well together. Can't stand them. Very glad to see that they are out of the playoffs, and the Dolphins continue. They keep their playoff hopes alive. They moved to 8-5 in the year. They moved to 9-5 in the year. The Dolphins are in a good position. They just got to continue to win these games. They got a tough one coming up in 2 weeks against the Bills, and then they have the Raiders. Raiders are very winnable. Bills is going to be tough, but we'll see what happens there. Next up, we got the Ravens and the Jaguars. This one started off choppy for the Ravens. Lamar Jackson threw the interception early. Made not a great decision. Threw an interception early. Jaguars capitalized. Jaguars are all excited, pumped up, and all that. And then Gardner Minshew takes the. Obviously has the sack, or not the sack, has the safety. And Minshew didn't play that bad yesterday. I mean, he threw 2 touchdowns and 226 yards. It was garbage time touchdowns. But obviously, the Ravens took care of business yesterday as well. A lot of teams just doing what they needed to do, get wins. And the Ravens did that early on. It looked tough for the Ravens, but then with the safety, that really put them over top. Now we move on to the Colts and the Texans. This one, talk about coming down to the wire. This one did. So the Colts, obviously, Texans 4-10, struggled all year. They throw it, guy catches it 5-yard line or so. Takes it, gets the fumble, doesn't cross the plane in time, fumbles it, Colts win the game. And then the Texans, another tough loss. Texans have had a back-to-back, a couple of these tough losses. They obviously had the one against the Colts just 2 weeks ago where they had a chance late, they didn't. Then they got demolished by the Bears, come out, had a chance against the Colts to lose again. This is a team that's had a couple of chances against the Browns. They had many chances to capitalize, can't. This is one of these teams where you think, they're not like a they're not like a Falcons bad in the fourth quarter, but it's definitely a team that makes many mistakes late, I would say. I mean, a fumble's a mistake if you ask me. So the Colts win, and they keep on moving on. Now I move on to the Packers, Panthers. Something about the Packers. I mean, they got the job done, and that's all that matters. But the Packers, man, something about them. They just make things interesting against bad teams, don't they? They really do. They really do make things interesting against bad teams. They made things interesting against the Lions, interesting against the Panthers, interesting against the Eagles, interesting against the Jaguars. It got interesting with the Falcons. Saints was interesting. Like the bad teams. These are the bad teams that they beat that were close. Panthers, Eagles, Lions, Jaguars. This team makes things interesting. Like, they aren't a team that's going to go out there and blow teams out, is what I should say. They get the win and stuff. Rodgers and Adams did not have the best games, but, I mean, this is a team that ultimately does get the win, but they keep it close. And as a Packers fans, I'm sure, probably, a lot of times are nervous most of the game. Because when you see the Panthers get the ball back and they're down by one score, and you're like, oh my gosh. And then the Jaguars, too, you're like, oh my gosh. Or we might lose to the Jaguars. It's definitely a team that causes some anxiety probably for their fans. Because it's not like you can enjoy by the third quarter they're up by 30. You got to watch the full 60-minute game, and you got to really keep your eyes peeled on the full 60-minute game. It's not like 35 minutes or 5 minutes left in the game, you're up by 50. A lot of times these games come down. A lot of times these take the full 60 minutes. And what I mean by that is it's going to take both teams the full 60 minutes to get the win. Meaning it ain't done by the halftime. A lot of times these games have been close. That's something Packers got to get a little bit better at. Not, at the end of the day is a win, but, if you continue to have some of these close games and mistakes late, those are going to hurt you when you start to play good teams in the playoffs and stuff like that. So now we move on to Bills and the Broncos. Bills clinched the AFC East for the first time since 1995, and I found this cool picture, or someone sent it to me. But this was it. So this was the last time the Bills won the AFC East. Josh Allen, their quarterback, wasn't born. The Texans didn't exist. Bill Belichick was coaching the Browns, and the Cowboys didn't stink. Cowboys didn't stink. That thing kind of is a little bit of a joke. But it's true, though. Back when they won it, back in 95 and stuff, the Cowboys with Irvin and Smith and all them and Aikman and all them, they were really insane. I mean, they were the team, and that's really where they grew the America's team name, the Dallas Star and all that. They were really insane. But that's it. Isn't it crazy? Bill Belichick was coaching the Browns the last time. Josh Allen, their quarterback, wasn't even born. Just think about that for a second. And I did my own research on this. Sean McVay, the Rams head coach, the last time this I found on my own. This I did my own. This I didn't found off the internet. Sean McVay, the Rams coach, was 9 years old the last time the Bills won it. 9 years old, about to be 10 years old, because his birthday's in January. I did the math. So he was 9 years old. So isn't that crazy? The last time the Bills won the AFC East, to add on to this, Josh Allen wasn't born. Texans didn't exist. Bill Belichick was coaching the Browns. The Cowboys were actually good, and Sean McVay was 9 years old. That is pretty crazy if you ask me. It really is. Sean McVay was like in elementary school. Or in isn't that crazy? Sean McVay, who's now coaching in the NFL. That's how, the Bills fans now are getting rewarded, but they went through a lot of years of suffering. And the Bills got the job done there. Now I move on to tonight's game. We got the Steelers and the Bengals. Steelers coming to this game 14-point favorites. Over-under is 40.5. Today, 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on ESPN. James Conner quadricep questionable. Dotson shoulder is out, and then for the Bengals, it's Wilson hamstring questionable out. Brandon Allen knee is out, and Wilson ankle is out. Some of the league rankings: points per game. Steelers are 12th. Bengals are 30th. Points per game allowed. Steelers are first. Bengals 22nd. Total yards per game. Steelers 22nd. Bengals 29th. Pass yards per game. Steelers 17th. Bengals 22nd. Rush yards per game. Steelers 31st. And the Bengals 30th. Yards per game allowed. Steelers 2nd. Bengals 23rd. I give the Steelers the win here. I don't think the Steelers are that good of a team, but they got the. I do think they get the win here. They just the Bengals and their defense, they just stink. So I give them the win here. 35-10, I think the Steelers win, and I take the over on the over-under 40.5. I think the Steelers cover easily. So that's my game pick there. Coming up next, fantasy football. Alrighty, so fantasy football. By the way, tomorrow we'll be starting fantasy basketball. Tomorrow's officially the first day of the NBA season, so we'll be starting fantasy basketball. I'll tell you who to start, who to sit, all that good stuff. It's gonna be, fantasy basketball. It's gonna be It'd be a little. I mean, I'll still do fantasy football, obviously, but it's going to be a little bit more harder because you have to do your lineup every day. So, I mean, you could always pre-say your lineup, but with injuries and stuff. So, you got to, fantasy basketball, that's, it's fantasy football is going to be a lot. A lot of times, like, you could wait. But if a player's questionable, you're going to have to, check it because that player could play that game. But, yeah, fantasy basketball should be exciting. But anyway, so in fantasy football, I lost in both leagues somehow. So my one league, my opponent still got Steelers defense. But in my one league, he still got Steelers defense. But let's see. So my one league, I lost 261 to 189. Just not a good week. I mean, just players just not coming up. Like since when did Devontae Adams gonna get 4 points? Aaron Rodgers at 20, Chris Carson at 6, Eckler at 7, Adams at 4, Robert Woods at 15, Robert Tonyan at 7, Robinson at 8. Who would ever thought the Rams defense would have struggled against the Jets? They had 4. Daniel Carlson at 9. My bench, Elliott at none. He was out. Schuster, he plays tonight. DJ Moore at 13. David Johnson at 13. Todd Gurley at 1. Robert Gronkowski at 2. Ronald Jones at none. David Johnson, I'm going to start the start. I'm going to start him. I mean, he's just been so consistent. He's so consistent. He's going to get you at least 9 points. So I'm going to start starting him. Again, I started him a couple times this season, but I'm going to really start it because he's been really solid in both leagues. Now it's on to the third place matchups. So hopefully somehow I win a third place matchup. I don't even know. This one I don't even think it's so much on me. Sometimes it is on me. Sometimes I make some decisions before game time that definitely cost me. But if you look at it, it's it's pretty tough because, who would have ever thought that the Jets were going to beat the Rams? Who would have ever thought that Devontae Adams was only going to go up have 4 points against a Carolina defense who allows the second most points to receivers? So, yeah. It's just, that's just the thing. But yeah, I mean, if you just look at the numbers matched up really, really, really well. So, it's tough there, but obviously obviously still got 2 more weeks to go. Definitely stinks not being the champ. I mean, one league I knew I wasn't going to be in. It was the league I just read. I knew I wasn't going to be in the championship, bearing an insane comeback. But it's pretty much over at this point. Other than the third place matchup, which I guess I'd be happy about that, but nothing better than winning a championship, to be honest. Now in my other league, the other league I blew, this was the league I blew the 50-point lead. I still don't know how I did that. I lost 235 to 221. Watson got me 22. Ken Drake got me 3. James Robinson got me 10. Tyreek Hill 11. Mike Evans 11. Devontae Adams 4. Robert Tonyan 7. A.J. Brown 10. Rams defense 4. Daniel Carlson 9. My bench, Keenan Allen had 1. I ended up benching him. He had a little bit of an injury. Gibson was out. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is doubtful. He got injured, but he still had 7. Monster had 6. David Johnson had 12, and Akers had 6. So even if I went to my bench, overall my team didn't have a great game. As for my other league, I could look back and say, you know what? I left two 13-point performances on my bench. So, I mean, this league, my team was just flat. I mean, throughout the day, usually commercials, I look at my fantasy lineup, and I was looking at this, and then there was no movement. There was nothing happening. There was literally nothing happening. 0. Oh, 1. Yeah, I see 1. There was nothing happening. This team was just flat. I don't know what it was. They just were. So that's it for fantasy, really. Now on to fantasy basketball. That's my main focus, obviously now, because third place matchup. But, I'm going to still try to win that. But it should be interesting. I'll tell you what. Who had a big day yesterday? Tannehill. Tannehill had a huge day. Oh, my goodness. Tannehill had a huge day. 5 total touchdowns. I mean, if that's not good, then I don't know what is. Same thing with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts had a big day, too. A lot of surprising quarterbacks having big days. Jalen Hurts at 43. Matt Ryan at 33. Minshew had 19, which still wasn't that bad. Mayfield at 24. Kirk Cousins, 23. Overall, not a bad day for quarterbacks, I'll tell you that for sure. I mean, Darnold got 16. He was projected to get 10. Darnold got 16. I mean, that wasn't bad. Tony Pollard had a good day. He had a very good day. He had 25 points. He had a very good day. Pollard's had a pretty good year. To be honest, depending on what happens with Elliott this offseason, Pollard probably wouldn't be a bad fantasy ad for next year. I don't think he'll be good this season, but definitely next season. He'll definitely be one of those guys you would want to keep your eye on. But now we move on to the rest of college football, college basketball, Kentucky, and the NBA. As for college basketball, Kentucky loses again. Just tough. Late, we had the game early. We were winning early. Couldn't get the job done. I think our team's just so young. We're just so young. We just don't, we're just so young. That is the statement. We're young. I mean, it's going to take time to develop. We got to get better on, transition-wise. We got to get better with shot selection. I mean, Terrence Clark is a good player, but, man, you cannot be shooting threes every time. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens the rest of the year. We've already got a player that's going to be leaving the team for a little bit. He had a malfunction at the end of the game. Calipari doesn't really want him to be on the lineup at the moment. So there's definitely some problems with Kentucky right now. And as a Kentucky fan, I've never gone through this bad. Like, I've never sat there and been that angry at Kentucky. Usually I'm very satisfied with Kentucky. Usually Kentucky, out of all my sports teams, usually they're the one that they're the ones that I can usually lean back on and say, oh, look, I root for this team. That's insane. Because the Yankees every year just blow the expectations. Your expectations are so high and they just go right under them. The Jets are the Jets. The Nets finally actually have an actual thing to look forward to. Usually the Nets are the awful team. Usually they're the laughing stock of the league. And then you got the Rangers are going through a current rebuild. A little bit of a rebuild, but nothing crazy there. And then you got Miami, who's iffy. For the games today, Clemson did win. I was going to predict Clemson to win anyway. They played Morehead State. You probably know me. I would not have predicted them to win. But Clemson win. Tennessee, I give them the win. Florida State, I give them the win. Baylor, give them the win. Virginia Tech, give them a win. And Gonzaga, give them the win. As for college football, the playoffs are set. I got a lot of good games. I got a lot of exciting games coming up. Bowl games are set. Clemson, Notre Dame. Clemson came out, got the job done. Things got really choppy. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence with the early interception, but Notre Dame really did bad. Obviously, the Final Four was Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Notre Dame. That's the Final Four teams left. So, obviously, that's the final teams. I don't really agree with it. I don't think Notre Dame should have been. I think after that blowout loss, you give Texas A&M in. And same thing with Ohio State. Ohio State only playing 6 games. Definitely interesting, but I want to see some of these other teams come in too. Some of these teams on the outside looking in. Clemson won, Alabama won, Cincinnati won, San Jose State won, Oklahoma won, Ohio State won, Texas A&M won, Oregon won. So these are the bowl games. Miami plays against Oklahoma State. I'm not going to do my predictions yet. That's the Cheez-It Bowl. There's some bowl games on tomorrow. I'll preview those. One game on tomorrow. BYU UCF, that's the Boca Raton Bowl. And then the rest of the bowl games are on Saturday, Wednesday, next Tuesday, some of that stuff later December, and the New Year's Six Bowls as well. And as for the NBA and all that good stuff, the NBA starts up very soon, starts up tomorrow. That is very exciting. The Nets, obviously, this season, obviously, a lot of people think they're the team to beat. I think they're definitely up there. Tomorrow will be a pretty much NBA pod. I'll be talking about tonight's Monday night game, but I'll be also talking about the Nets' upcoming season, give you my power rankings, give you the prediction for the first game, some of the other games that are on tomorrow as well. So going to be an exciting day tomorrow. A lot of good NBA stuff going to be exciting to watch. KD and Kyrie finally take the floor together in a regular season game. We've seen them both in preseason. Now it's time to put it all together and play an actual meaningful game, a game that counts in the regular season opener tomorrow. Nets Warriors should be a lot of fun. And then we have the Christmas Day game with the Nets and a bunch of other Christmas Day games. So that should be all fun. I'm really excited. I'm really excited for the upcoming sporting events these next upcoming weeks, or even upcoming days. It's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of good sports on. So with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast today. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Obviously, a lot of basketball and all that good stuff tomorrow. So with all that being said, I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.